If we rank all the technological innovations throughout human history, let's go back, uh, maybe the history of human civilizations 12,000 years ago, and you rank them by how much of a productivity multiplier they've been. So we can go to electricity or the labor mechanization of the Industrial Revolution, or we can go back to the first agricultural revolution 12,000 years ago. In that long list of inventions, do you think AI, when history is written 1,000 years from now, do you think it has a chance to be the number one productivity multiplier?
It's a great question. Look, many years ago, I think it might have been 2017 or 2018, I said at the time, AI is the most profound technology humanity will ever work on. It'll be more profound than fire or electricity. So I have to back myself. I still think that's the case. When you asked this question, I was thinking, well, do we have a recency bias, right? Like in sports, it's very tempting to call the current person you're seeing the greatest
Yes.
player, right? And so is there a recency bias? And, you know, I do think from first principles, I would argue AI will be bigger than all of those. I didn't live through those moments. 2 years ago, I had to go through a surgery, and then I processed that there was a point in time people didn't have anesthesia when they went through these procedures. At that moment, I was like, that has got to be the greatest invention
Yeah.
humanity has ever
Yes.
done, right? So, look, we don't know what it is to have lived through those times. But, and many of what you're talking about were kind of this general things which pretty much affected everything, electricity or internet, etc. But I don't think we've ever dealt with a technology, both which is progressing so fast, becoming so capable. It's not clear what the ceiling is. And the main unique, it's recursively self improving, right? It's capable of that. And so the fact it's the first technology will kind of dramatically accelerate creation itself, building new things, can improve and achieve things on its own, right? I think like puts it in a different league, right? And so different league. And so I think the impact it will end up having will far surpass everything we've seen before. Obviously, with that comes a lot of important things to think and wrestle with, but I definitely think that'll end up being the case.
Especially if it gets to the point of where we can achieve superhuman performance on the AI research itself. So it's a technology that it's an open question, but it may be able to achieve a level to where the technology itself can create itself better than it could yesterday.
It's like the move 37 of alpha research or whatever it
Yeah.
is, right? And when yeah, you're right. When it can do novel self-directed research, obviously for a long time we'll have hopefully always humans in the loop and all that stuff, and these are complex questions to talk about. But yes, I think the underlying technology, I've said this, like if you watched seeing AlphaGo start from scratch, be clueless, and like become better through the course of a day, really it hits you when you see that happen. Even our like the VO3 models, if you sample the models when they were like 30% done and 60% done and looked at what they were generating, and you kind of see how it all comes together, it's kind of like, I would say, it's kind of inspiring, a little bit unsettling, right, as a human. So all of that is true, I think.
Well, the interesting thing of the Industrial Revolution, electricity, like you mentioned, we can go back to again, the first agricultural revolution. There's what's called the Neolithic package of the first agricultural revolution. It wasn't just that the nomads settled down and started planting food, but all this other kind of technology was born from that, and it's included in this package. So it wasn't one piece of technology. There's these ripple effects, second and third order effects that happen. Everything from something silly, profound, like pottery that can store liquids and food, to something we kind of take for granted, but social hierarchies, and political hierarchies. So like early government was formed because it turns out if humans stop moving and have some surplus food, they start coming up with they get bored and they start coming up with interesting systems, and then trade emerges, which turns out to be a really profound thing. And like I said, government, there's just second and third order effects from that, including that package, is incredible and probably extremely difficult. If you ask one of the people in the nomadic tribes to predict that, it would be impossible. It's difficult to predict. But all that said, what do you think are some of the early things we might see in the quote unquote AI package?
I mean, most of it probably we don't know today, but like, the one thing which we can tangibly start seeing now is, obviously with the coding progress, you got a sense of it. It's going to be so easy to imagine, like thoughts in your head, translating that into things that exist. That'll be part of the package, right? Like it's going to empower almost all of humanity to kind of express themselves. Maybe in the past you could have expressed with words, but like you could kind of will things into existence, right? Maybe not fully today. We are at the early stages of vibe coding. I've been amazed at what people have put out online with VO3,
Mhm.
but it takes a bit of work, right? You have to stitch together a set of prompts, but all this is going to get better. The thing I always think about, this is the worst it'll ever be, right? Like at any given moment in time.
Yeah, it's interesting you went there as kind of a first thought. So the exponential increase of access to creativity.
Software creation. Are you creating a program, a piece of content to be shared with others, games down the line? All of that just becomes infinitely more possible.
Well, I think the big thing is that it makes it accessible. It unlocks the cognitive capabilities of the entire 8 billion.
No, I agree. Look, think about 40 years ago, maybe in the US, there were 5 people who could do what you were doing,
Mhm.
like go do a interview, but today, think about with YouTube and other products, etc. Like how many more people are doing it? So I think this is what technology does, right? Like when the internet created blogs, you heard from so many more people. So I think, but with AI, I think that number won't be in the few hundreds of thousands. It'll be tens of millions of people, maybe even a billion people, like putting out things into the world in a deeper way.
AI는 인류의 역사 흐름 중에 큰 부분을 차지하는 건 분명합니다. 증기기관과 전기의 보급이 직업의 대전환을 일으킨 것처럼 AI의 등장도 직업의 대전환을 일으키고 있죠. 그럼 미래에는 어떤 직업이 살아남을까요? 샘 알트만이나 나발 같은 실리콘밸리의 대가들은 한 가지 공통적으로 말하는 게 있습니다. AI가 발전하면 발전할수록 1인 기업 혹은 소수로 이루어진 기업이나 크리에이터들이 점점 더 많이 생겨날 거라고 말이죠. 그리고 이거는 기업의 구조를 보면 당연합니다. 기업의 구조는 아주 크게 보면 세 가지로 이루어져 있습니다. 기업의 방향을 결정하고 아이디어를 만들어내는 극소수, 아이디어로 계획을 세우는 소수, 그리고 계획을 실행시키는 다수로 이루어져 있죠. 그리고 AI는 이 다수의 사람들을 대체할 수 있습니다. 그러니까 기업이 점점 더 작아지는 건 어떻게 보면 당연한 거죠. 하지만 이거를 반대로 뒤집어 보면 우리가 아이디어 그리고 기획력만 있으면 우리가 상상하는 어떤 것이든 만들어낼 수 있다는 뜻이기도 합니다. 뿐만 아니라 기술의 발전은 그 어느 때보다 1인 기업가 그리고 크리에이터들에게 좋은 환경을 만들어주고 있죠. 예를 들어서 인터넷 이전에는 우리 비즈니스에 대한 수요를 물리적으로 찾아야 됐습니다. 하지만 인터넷이 등장한 이후에는 디지털 세계에서 수요를 찾을 수 있게 됐죠. 그리고 AI 시대에서는 AI가 알아서 수요를 찾아줍니다. 우리가 영상을 유튜브나 인스타에 올리기만 하면 알고리즘은 우리의 영상을 정말로 필요로 하는 사람들한테 알아서 가져다 주죠. 상품을 만드는 것도 예전보다 훨씬 더 쉬워졌습니다. 옛날에는 홈페이지 하나를 만들기 위해선 몇십 명의 사람들이 몇백 시간을 투자해야 됐죠. 하지만 지금은 AI가 30초면 만들어줍니다. 물론 겉껍데기만 만들어주지만요. 그래서 이제는 시스템에 종속돼서 위에서 시키는 일만 하는 사람들은 더 이상 살아남지 못할 겁니다. 결국 AI 시대에서 살아남기 위해선 내가 직접 아이디어를 짜내고 내가 시스템을 설계해야 됩니다. 실행은 AI가 다 해줄 수 있으니까요. 오늘도 시청해주셔서 감사합니다. 유바.